This is Geddy Cahoon, and you're listening to the Three Count Podcast.
I'm in fashion, heroic
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you out this mountain called wrestling. And that's right. And by now, I wish you guys would just say, I am your Sherpa. That's right. That's what it is. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have somebody who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. And that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. So today, you can find this person at Chikara, the Monster Factory, MAWA. You can find this person at TMP Expo. You can find this person at Rise, HWT, IWA, Vintage Pro, Eclipse, Dog, and Fusion. He is the most incredible person in the world, Geddy Cahoon.
That's a pretty big, most incredible person in the world. That's a big standard you set for me. So hopefully I'm at least like slightly incredible after all that.
I mean, or we could just be like, Wario, Waluigi, Waluigi, Waluigi.
The dumb stuff, the fun dumb stuff that I do.
That is so cool because you definitely I was definitely watching on the comic book expo, and I saw you doing that, and I was like, yo, that's so funny that you are like really open and like just having so much fun with that too. Because
that's like a really just like, it's such a weird, but like weird in like a good way. It's like a very unique atmosphere to like have a show. So it's the one that I did recently. It's Too Many Games, which is it's like a video game convention in PA, and it's one of the bigger, I think, video game cons like on the East Coast. I'm pretty sure, and so like one of the attractions they do is like the cosplay wrestling, and I don't know if you know the guy who books it, this guy Mike Goldstein. He's like a local worker. He's been around for a while. He's a good guy, and I just like got on from meeting him, and it's just like a really interesting crowd because they're not really like wrestling fans, a lot of them, and I think it's like, I'm sure you've done your share of crowds that aren't like really like hardcore wrestling crowds, or however you want to say it, and a lot of time like those crowds are better maybe,
right.
And I think the cosplay crowds are so just fun and like kind of like intense in like an interesting way because they react to things a little bit differently. They haven't maybe seen every single move, and they haven't seen a million matches. So it's like sometimes like by doing the simpler stuff, you get like a better reaction, but then you do like the goofy stuff, you do some of the gaga stuff, but then you do like, the cool stuff, like you sneak like a little bit more like complex spot in there or something. And they're kind of like, oh shit, like can I curse? Is that cool? Everything like, but so they're
yes,
kind
you
of
can
like,
curse. You're
okay,
very well
gotcha,
cursed.
good.
Yeah.
I tried, just wanted to make sure, after I already did it. But those are some really fun shows, and I think it's like you said, it's kind of a thing where you can't be afraid to like put yourself out there and like be kind of dumb, but it's like that dumb fun that I think like is like, that's like the best part of wrestling, is doing that like dumb fun stuff. Like when you distill wrestling to its core, that's really what it is, right? It's like dumb fun.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I like definitely enjoy about wrestling is that wrestling is it can be like whatever you want it to be, right? And whether you want to be like a comic book character, or you like model yourself after like your favorite TV show,
Sure.
or just whatever. It's crazy to think about like how wild the world is of wrestling. But then you think about like cosplay, and like you're now you're mixing in cosplay and wrestling, and like you have all these different entities and mixes that you can now throw together where like, Waluigi is like facing against Deadpool.
And it's like, I don't even know how, like you were doing it, the wah thing, which is like, it's like a riff on like the Daniel Bryan, like the Yes, like that whole character that he was doing in WWE, like back in the day, that got super over. And at one of the cosplay shows, I just randomly decided to do that, and it just was like the people who were watching like instantly like understood what it was, like even like the non-wrestling fans, because you just do a chant and they chant, and it was just one of those things that it got like such a good reaction. And it's like, it's silly, but it makes sense in like a way, like the weird logic of wrestling, like where you get the crowd to kind of bite for something that is sort of goofy, but it's like, you have to commit 100% to the goofiness. You can't do it with like a wink. I don't like it when people do things with like a wink. You know what I mean? Like in that moment, even though I'm wrestling as Waluigi from fucking Mario, which is stupid. It's stupid, but it's like in that moment, that's what I'm doing. So it's like you have to just get behind what you're doing 100%. If somebody, even a crowd that doesn't have like a high wrestling IQ, or it's young kids or something, not that there's anything wrong with that, but they can tell when like you're not into it. And I just think like
Yeah.
that's a big part of it. You have to be 100% behind what you're doing. If it's the dumbest thing ever, or if it's like some super cool serious shit, you have to believe it, because if you don't believe it, then the people watching aren't going to believe it either. So whether you're, Waluigi or the real Daniel Bryan having some fucking, crazy death match, like you have to be there for it, or else it's just, what's the point,
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like something that I've been like starting to learn and understand more and more now is that like you have the intent has to be there and you have
Sure.
to be able to turn it up on a dime, which is like something that like I had a lot of good like mentors come through and like tell me they're like, listen, like the one thing that you're and like just for me, like full transparency, when people like try to figure it out, like I'm missing that second gear. And mind you, I've
Sure.
only been into business for just over 2 years. So
Oh,
everybody's
okay,
like, you're
well,
missing that second gear that
sure.
like when does Red Dog want to win his matches? And it was very interesting
Hmm.
to hear that because I was like the whole time that I've been working, I was like, nah, I've been like always trying to win the matches. But then
Yeah,
like I go
right.
back and watch my matches and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm like at one level the whole
Yeah.
time. At
Uh-huh.
no time do I go up. So like even though I'm bought into my own gimmick and my own style, like
Right.
there's never been that like holy cow moment. Like you got to try to win
Yep.
the match, and I
Sure,
like
like,
it
because
was very interesting.
even if you perfectly understand who you are, there's like all these ways that you have to convey that. And it's like so many different little minute things that you have to do. It's like you say, it's body language, it's facial expressions, it's like the way you do the moves, later in a match versus earlier in a match, like all those little things. And it's like, it's hard, man. Like it's not easy to nail that stuff. And I think especially like, having only been in the business like 2 3 years, like you were saying, like sometimes like that stuff takes it's dozens and dozens and hundreds of matches sometimes for that to like really click, because I started training in 2014, so I've been doing it about 8 years now, eight and a half ish, because it was like spring of 2014 that I started. And it's like I can't even pinpoint the exact moment where it was finally like, oh, like now this makes sense, or oh, now that makes sense, because it's just like it's the repetition and like the constantly doing it and stuff, and then eventually it's something that you just feel. And one day you'll have a match and you'll do it, and those people that told you like, hey, you had to do this, they'll be like, oh, you did it. Red Dog wanted to win that time. I could tell he wanted to win, and it'll be something that you'll just be like, damn, really? Like I feel like you can't, to an extent, it's like you can't even try, because when you think about it too hard, it's like it doesn't. Because so much of this is like, wrestling is such a weird thing, because it's like a sport, but it's also like a performance art. So it's like, and I think a lot of it is like instinctual. I think like the best guys ever in wrestling are guys that just had some kind of like weird natural inclination to be good at it, and obviously a lot of it is learned. You have to learn how to do certain things. You don't just know how to do, like a lockup and international stuff, like, you know what I mean, like the mechanical aspects of it, but like the intensity and the character and like the way you move and the way you make things look convincing and stuff. Like some people just have like a natural wrestling instinct, and I think like the way to get good and the way to make, that to get to that next level is you have to take that natural instinct and like shape your actual training around it. And it's so hard. It's like this hard, like it's this vague amorphous thing. It's like hard to even put into words,
Yeah.
because it's just it's like it's such a unique thing, but it just comes like with a combination of time and like trying, but then like not trying too hard. And it's like if you force it, it's not going to happen, but you can't, like, you have to always be thinking about it, but not thinking about it too much. It's like, like wrestling, it's kind of convoluted and weird. Like it's like just hard to put into words sometimes. But
Well,
when you
like the
feel it,
way, yeah, I was gonna say like the way it got explained to me was you got to think of it like a power up, like in a video game, right? Like
yeah,
when you're losing in a video game, you're like, oh man, I gotta turn it up, and you always hit the power up, and then you're
right,
like, then you obviously activate, right? And then you're like trying to win. You're trying to win the
yeah,
match. Like if you're let's say you're playing like Street Fighter, right? And you're like you lose the first round, but you know you can't lose the second round, so you're like you like crank up everything and you're just
sure.
mashing buttons
Yeah,
faster to
yeah,
try to
right.
get the
It's like a
combos.
that sense of like desperation and like like you're trying to like claw your way to like a win. And I really like you see it a lot in like more like Japanese style matches where like guys will like hit their finish and then like pick the guy up and hit the finish again, like a second time or maybe like a third time, and like that's the end of the match. Like I love that kind of shit because I think like that's like that better level of storytelling where it's kind of like a lot, but it makes sense because it's like I think in one of his recent matches with Seth, I think Cody Rhodes did it where he hit the crossroads and he just picked him up and he did it again, and it's like, because why would you not do that? Like if the guy is down from the move, why would you not just do it again just to really make sure if you really want to win that bad? So I think like that's like a good way to express that I kind of gravitate towards. I mean, I like Japanese wrestling, so maybe I'm just biased, but like I think like it's like little things, like little different interesting ways that you can show, like you said, like Red Dog wants to win. He wants to win. How do you show it? But I think that's a good analogy, like the power up, like that that big. I love that big facial expression. When you get that, you hit that false finish or whatever it is, you hit your signature move, that kick out, and just that moment where everything breathes. You see both guys' faces, and it's like, damn, like what now? And you want that what now to be like, damn, like what now? Not like, oh, what now? Like they did everything. I think it's a slippery slope because sometimes you get that what now where it's like, okay, well it's a 45-minute match and they've hit every move humanly possible. So like what now? And then it's like you want that other what now, that like damn, like what's next? What's possibly gonna happen? Like, and it's can be hard to convey that. It's like a it's like a weird dance where everybody has to be on the same page. Every single element has to fall into place, and you're like, that's like good wrestling.
Yeah, it's something that like it's weird because like I've seen other people who are like helping me and shaping me and mentoring me, right? And it's interesting to hear like everybody's like philosophies.
Sure,
And I got so like I not that I'm like name dropping here, so I'll end up picking this one up later. But when I was talking to Darius Lockhart,
sure,
he was like, he's like everybody he was like, hey, everybody has their own different philosophies on wrestling. I can tell you my philosophy, but I don't want to interfere with what your trainer has been teaching you. And I was like,
sure.
and I understood that. And like now, like I'm looking at everybody else, I'm like talking to them and realizing like, oh, there's a lot of ways to do this.
Yeah,
And you kind of have to mold your own style to
uh-huh.
it.
The thing that I always heard was like it's like different flavors of ice cream. I think that's like the way that it usually gets put. That's like I think every fucking indie pro wrestler has heard some variation of that phrase because it really is. It's like you'll be in front of different people, and in the years I've done so many like camps, like especially back when I was like first breaking into the Monster Factory, like my first couple years, like they did so many like camps and stuff there, which is really great, like to be around like like first breaking in people like Les Thatcher and like Rip Rogers and stuff would come in. Uh, he's the Blade now in AEW, but at the time he was Braxton Sutter, did like a really good seminar one time, and it was like just like all these different ways, basically, like you said, to learn like the same thing, and it feels overwhelming sometimes because it's like you'll get a lot of time you get conflicting advice, straight up, like you'll get somebody to tell you do something one way, and then you'll do it that way, and somebody else will be like, I hate that, like why are you doing that way? And it's like it's not that it's wrong, it's just that you're never going to please everybody because everybody has a different outlook. Like you said, everybody has like their own thought process on like how you should take a hip toss or how you should sell a forearm. So it's like you have to just make sure you do it well enough that even if somebody doesn't like the specific way that you did it, they can't be like that was bad. They'd be like, I don't like that, maybe, but not that like, oh, that was terrible. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't my favorite flavor of ice cream. So I think like
Right.
that's like such a hard thing, and it's hard not to get discouraged sometimes. Like if you like doing something one way and then somebody tells you they don't like it and then you're like, well, maybe I should change it, and it's like, well, do you change it for that one person or do you just take that advice under advisement and keep doing it the way you know what I mean? Like learning chain wrestling a lot of time, which I personally don't really like. I don't do a lot in my matches because I just don't think I don't think it looks good when I do it because I'm just not a smooth person. I'm not like an athletic crisp person, but people like I would sometimes, as once I had a few years in, I would sometimes help younger guys with like lockups and chaining, like basic shit that like anybody with a couple years can kind of teach and guide people on. And the guys would be like, "Hey, what if I get out of a move this way, or what if I did this?" And I'm always just like, "Hey, man, look, as long as it like looks good, I don't think there's any like right or wrong way to do this shit, but you might get somebody else that tells you don't ever do that or I'll stab you in the throat, because you sometimes get those guys that are like, you absolutely can't do this way, and then but it's kind of like navigating like a minefield, like just learning how to do this shit sometimes. But that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, and it is weird to know, like, hey, like, because and those who pay attention to the wrestling scene will like totally understand this. And sorry if I'm peeling back the curtain a little too far, but like certain places you're working on the left side, certain places you're working on the right side, and so like I was in a match recently and took a hip toss the way wrong way. And like my trainer came back to me. He's like, why'd you do the hip toss that way? I was like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't. I took the hip toss. It would look
Right.
dumber if my partner's here like this, and I was just like, nope, I'm gonna cruise right by you.
Yeah, right. It's like one of those things like where that's what makes wrestling so difficult and unique, is like you have to adjust on the fly to like weird shit like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, right, like what could you do? You just had to take the move, right? I mean, sure, you could have done maybe some whole convoluted way to fix it, I guess, but sometimes it's easier to just get to the next thing and just get through it. You know what I mean? Like it's hard. You sometimes have to make those little compromises. And I vividly remember one time when I was like, again, like a year in, maybe 2 years in, and I was in a match, and I don't know what happened. I just got like a little nervous or confused or something, and I whipped the guy that I was wrestling, but I like grabbed like his right hand and did like this weird whip thing that just looked nothing like a whip that any human should ever do. And even like being so new, it was just, I knew I shouldn't have done it, but it was like I was already like midway through the motion. I was like, well, I have to commit to this now, and he had to do it, and he had to run, and take the whip for this shitty whip. And I got to the back, and everybody was just like, "Hey, what happened?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like I'm 18 years old. I'm uncoordinated and unathletic, and I had a brain fart. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, and maybe like and I felt so bad because it's like it made him look stupid. Like I didn't care about me, but it was just like I felt bad for the guy. But it's just like little things like that, man. Sometimes in the moment, stuff happens. And I feel like that's like 90% of wrestling is just adjusting for things like not happening the way you think they're going to. Whether it's one individual person's fault or just both people or nobody's even at fault, and shit just sometimes changes and doesn't hack out the way you think it's going to. But that's kind of the beauty and the tragedy of wrestling, is that it's you always just want it to go exactly how you planned it, and it never does.
And
Ever.
it never does.
Never.
One of
Never
like it's
punch for
funny because
punch
like
perfect.
in a match I had, right, it was a three-way match, and
Sure.
one of the guys in the match, he just came right up to me and he was like, "Buddy, I am lost." And I was like, "Listen, just chop me in the throat and then go hit the other dude with a headbutt." And like the way I was expecting him to like throat chop me was like an like an X.
Yeah, right. A nice
And
safe.
instead he just dropped back and was just like, "Ka!" Like right, like straight karate chop
Yeah,
me right in the throat. And I was like,
that's so
I
funny,
wasn't being
dude.
serious, bro.
Yeah, I wasn't asking you to kill me. Like, hit me with a real fucking. That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, I one time I was at a training match like years ago, and we were just like calling stuff on the fly, just like rolling around. And I called the guy. I was like, hey, give me an RKO, like a cutter. I was like, you got it, RKO, and he was like, yep. And so like we got some separation. He just like super kicked me in the neck. And I was like, what part of like that was remotely similar to an RKO? And it was like funny. It was like it fucking hurt, but I was laughing about it because it was just so funny. I was like, how did you get that? I forget what he said. He was like, oh, I got flustered or something. I was like, let's see, you tried to dislodge my trachea and kill me? Like, holy shit. But
He got
yeah,
flustered, and the first thing you thought
yeah.
was kick him in the neck.
Let me kill this guy because I'm flustered. But yeah, and I think like what you said, like having somebody in a match just be like, hey man, I'm lost. And I think like for me, I get like that's something I have like bad anxiety about. Like when I call my matches is like stuff getting forgotten. Like and little things is whatever. Like you forget one little spot, that's not a big deal. But I have like I don't like when large swathes of a match are forgotten. You know what I mean? Which I think anybody probably feels that way because then the whole thing falls apart. So I'm very big on like I always know like the whole match, like punch for punch. Like even if it's like a multi-person match, I always know like my partner spots, the other people's spots, everything, so that if somebody ever says that, like, hey man, I'm lost, what's next? I'll always tell them like, oh, you have to go do this and get so and so and this, that, and the third. And it's like that's the one thing that I always feel like I've prioritized as like I've got more experience and stuff. I've always tried to be like a good general. And that's one thing that people have always, and not to be like, well, look how great I am. That's like one thing I always think like people have complimented me on is because like I said before, like I'm not some super athletic, like really crisp wrestler. I'm just I'm just not a very coordinated person. Not that I look like I don't know what I'm doing, but it's just, I'm not, like Kurt Angle in his prime, Shawn Michaels, like some technical master, but I always am there for everything and I always try to keep things under control. And I think like that is something that unless you're actually in the business, like you can't understand how important it is to have like a good general, like somebody that really knows like and knows every spot and can take control of the match if need be. You know what I mean? And like that was something that one time I did like a little back years ago. This was years ago. Chikara did this little thing. They would do this thing on like Sunday afternoons. They called it like I don't think it ever even got uploaded or anything, but they called it like the incubator or something. And it was like a student show, but there wasn't any fans. It was just like a trained show basically. It was like a full gear show with like entrances, but they just did it as like for reps. And they had a match. It was like this crazy like clusterfuck like 6 team 3 team tag, like triple threat tag. And after the match, like the big feedback we got was just like they were like, like the match was a little sloppy. It wasn't like a horrible match, wasn't great, but they were like, they were like, you guys, they were like, Geddy, you're a general, man. Like you held it together, and that was always like a compliment that I really took to heart. And I feel like that's how I've tried to apply my skill as I've gone through the years, like calling matches and doing different promotions and stuff. Like I always try to be like that general, like that person that you can look at me and be like, hey man, I'm lost, and you'll know like I'll tell you exactly what you have to do, whether you do it or not, whether you get unlost and figure it out. After that, that's on you. But I'll definitely remember. Somebody's got to. And I think like there's got to be that one person in the match that shoulders that burden. Like, okay, I'll help you if you get lost. I'll remember everything.
That's awesome, though. So I'm a big proponent of asking this question. I really wanted to. I love it. It's one of my favorites, and I think
Sure.
a lot of people who listen to the show, it's one of their favorites. But what's one of the worst bumps you've taken?
That's a that's kind of like opening a can of worms. I've taken a lot of really stupid, dumb bumps. The worst one immediately that I can think of is I was there's a guy who is based around here, East Coast. I think he lives in Maryland now. It's Hyena Hex. He wrestles under, and I've known him for years. Like I like came up with him. He trained at the factory. He broke in I think like a year or two after me, and he and I had like this long series of matches back in like 2019 on those Monster Factory shows. And he's a really great guy, like great worker. He's a freaking space alien. He's a goofball, but like I love the guy. But he and I had a hardcore match at one point, and I was like, "Hey man, why don't you do that suplex bump that Mick Foley does?" I was like, "Why don't you suplex me onto the steps?" And at the Monster Factory, they have like legit like steel steps, like they're heavy. Like you can't like throw them into the ring. They're not like gimmick steps. Like they're like heavy, like dangerous, like iron steps. And I was like, yeah, just like suplex me onto the steps. I was like, that'll be cool. And it was so unbelievably painful because it's just like the unprotected like meat of your thighs, like going onto like these sharp steel steps and like your lower back. And it was so bad. And like I knew it was gonna be bad. I didn't think it was gonna feel good. I just wanted to do it because I was like, this will be cool. And I'm just being reckless with my body, but it'll be cool. And I did it, and I was like, that wasn't even cool, like to be worth it. I was like, that was just horrible. Like it hurt so bad, dude. That was like bad. And it was like the way they were filming, they didn't even get like a good shot of it. So I don't think it's ever like seen the light of day. I was like, that's great. Awesome. And that's on us for not being like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna do this dumb bump. Can you make sure you film me when we go near the stairs? But that was a bad one. That was like after that match, I was like limping for like a couple of days. I was like, yeah, that was just so stupid, so dumb. But I've done like I did like a missed I did like a missed senton to the floor once, which was pretty stupid. um, somebody uploaded a clip on Twitter, and I think somebody saw it. Like, I think it was Kenny King somehow randomly saw it, and he was just like, he responded to the video, and he was like, "There was literally no reason to do that." And I was like, "Yeah, you're probably right. Pretty
Thanks,
stupid."
thanks, Kenny. I'm a huge
Yeah,
fan.
thank you. Yeah, thank you. I don't disagree. There really was no reason to do that. Speaking as the guy who did it, I'm pretty sure you might be onto something. But yeah, those two are both pretty bad. And there was one, but those were like intentional. There was one like a botched thing where I took like a suplex like off the apron, which was something that I thought was cool. Like I did it in like a couple matches. And I thought it was cool for like a big bump, like just like a vertical off the apron, like to the floor, like a snap suplex, which it hurt, but it was like the first couple times I did it, it was like safe. Like I just went straight over and just hit the ground, which sucked, but it was just like a cool, like it looked cool. It got like a good reaction, but I did it in this one match and our timing was just like a little off, or our positioning was. And when I flipped, I like swung and like my lower back just like smashed on the fucking apron. It hurts. It was bad. Like I was like this. I was like I just like broke my spine. I was like, this is not good. Like, and I was fine, but that was a bad. I never did that spot again after that. I was like, yeah, I'm not risking that again. And there's not many things where I've done it and been like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. But that and the Foley stair bump were pretty bad. Those are ones that like that was like 3 years ago. I took both of those, and I've never attempted either since because it was just. I was like, I just think maybe I'll save this for like if I'm ever on TV. Maybe that's a better idea. If that ever happens, maybe I shouldn't be killing myself like on these smaller shows. Maybe I'll keep those in my back pocket of my bump card. I won't use those up now.
Like, yeah, when I get in front of those like big tall crowds, then I'll throw it in there. But otherwise, I'm just gonna be this is where we're gonna hang out for right now.
Yeah, right.
That's something I love asking this question, right? Because it's one of those questions where like I learn, and I'm just like, you know what? That's just not something I think I don't want to do, like ever.
Yeah. I've had plenty of times where like I've wrestled guys and I've been like, hey, I want to do this, and they'll look at me and they'll just be like, well, I don't think you need to do that. Like you don't need to do that to yourself. And I'm like, yeah, well, we don't need, if you want to get to that level, we don't need to be doing any of this. We're pretend fighting and beating ourselves up. So, if I want to take a bump on concrete, I don't know why you're so concerned about it. But I appreciate when people are like, hey man, maybe you shouldn't do the stupid shit. But I think like there's a healthy amount of stupid shit you can do. But you're right. That's definitely a good way to know. Like put that in your little notebook. Like do not take McFoley bump onto steel steps. Save that one for TV.
Yes. I remember, well, like even like when we had TJP on the show, he was talking about a bump that he did. Like he's taken his bump numerous times, right? And it was like a head scissor takeover. It was like a head scissors. He like jumped over the top rope, but he was like he was on the mat and he ran. He just jumped. He just did it to the outside, flipped the guy over, and he's like, I don't know what happened. He's like, as I went to jump to grab the top rope, like I missed the top rope and I still got the head scissor and then like flipped him off. And he's like, and I landed on my neck. And then I remember like going like after the match, and William Regal came up to me and was like, don't ever do that again. He's like, I don't intend on it. And he's like, I was like, I remember hearing that story and I was just like, yeah, it's just not something that I want to do either.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like I don't think I'll be busting out a jumping out of the ring head scissors anytime soon. Yeah, man. It's like, well, that's the thing. It's like, even if you've done something a billion times, like sometimes the shit that you do in wrestling, even if you're like an athletic freak, even if you can do all that crazy shit, it's like such unnatural things to make your body do. You know what I mean? Like all those flips and like landing so hard. I always would tell guys if I was trying to help like newer people with their bumps and stuff, it's like you're literally teaching your body to go against its instincts of like bracing yourself when you fall and not just like falling flat backwards defenselessly, which is like you have to like unlearn all these instincts and you're just hurting yourself. That's all wrestling is. You're just hurting yourself for like performance. And it's like, guys that do that kind of stuff, it's like, it's crazy. Like, I wish I could do that kind of shit. And it's like, But all it takes is that one time. I'm not trying to be like, oh, they shouldn't do that style and those flippy guys are killing the business, because I don't have that thought process at all. Like I like that kind of stuff. I don't have an issue with it. But it's like every time I watch guys do that, like flipping shit or jumping out of the ring, anything where they go head over heels, I always cringe, because all it takes is like just that one time where it's like a little iffy. You know what I mean? Like even like I'm again, I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm not like a big flippy guy, but I'll do like sometimes like a senton, like off the top. Sometimes I'll do like a flipping senton. I usually do like a flat back. Once in a while, I'll do like a front flip, like a not as cool looking swanton, because I'm not Jeff Hardy. But one time I did that and I just didn't cut the flip great, and I landed like right on my arm, and it was just like bad. And I was fine, like really hurt myself or anything, but I was just like, Jesus, like stupid. Like it's just like weird, dumb shit sometimes. And then like I could have like really, broken my shit and hurt myself. And good thing I didn't. But it's like every time I watch guys do that shit, I'm like jealous, because I'm like, damn, I wish I could move like that. But it's also just scary. So much of wrestling is just scary, like modern wrestling. It's cool, but it's scary.
Yeah, well, it's like even you get hurt like on the simplest things. I know like recently I was we were in training and we were doing all of our bumps, right? Just regular bumps. And I decided, I was like, yo, I threw like a massive dojo bump, right? And I was just like, let me just choke slam myself, because it's just fun. I don't know why. I just
Yeah, right.
like in wrestling, something's always loose, and that's apparently is my. So anyway, so like I'm throwing these massive like dojo bumps, and one of the other students was like, yo, I want to learn how to do that. Was like, listen, it's just jump up and lie flat on your back.
Right. I mean,
this is what it is. And so this one student jumps up, like wants to do it, and then puts his leg down. And I was like, oh, and I'm so glad like he landed safely.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But
safely.
Yeah, but yeah, he landed, and I was like, bro, like, don't ever put your leg down when you do it.
Yeah.
He's like, well, why? I was like, because you can just like dislocate the knee,
right.
dislocate your elbow. I was like, you have no idea how much damage you can do just doing that.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay. So then he's like, can I try it again? I was like, I mean, if you want to, I'm not gonna stop you. I was like, you already fucked it up once.
Yeah, right.
Why not try it again?
Right? Yeah, right.
And then he did a dumb thing too, because like he jumped up, kept his legs in the air, and he just reached for, like, he kept his elbows back and was like reaching for the ground. I was like, all right, dude, you're never doing this bump. Like, anybody ever I tell you like, hey, I'm gonna choke slam you, you're just telling I can't.
Yeah, right. Like I can't, not yet. I have to
no
anything. I didn't get to that lesson yet. Yeah, it's like I think that's definitely a thing. Like guys sometimes want to, and again, I'm not one of those people that's like, we need to teach like these young guys. We need to break these young guys in hard, and they shouldn't be doing certain things. This and like I get it. Like you start wrestling and you want to do cool shit. I'm not, but it's like a lot of guys. I think like they don't have a grasp of it, and they start trying to do dumb shit. And it's like that's how you get hurt. You put your elbow down, you put your leg down. It's one little weird dumb thing, and then like you're hurt before you even got started. It's like just learn, learn the simple shit for like a couple months, and you can just do whatever you want. You can just do whatever you want once you know how to do like the basic shit. And if you want to kill yourself, that's on you. At least you know how to, keep it together on like a simple level. And then if you want to do some dumb shit, cool. Learn how to do the dumb shit.
Try to protect yourself.
Yeah, right. Learn how to do the simple shit, and then learn how to do the dumb shit. Don't get it out of order. It's better if you do the simple shit than the dumb shit.
Well, it's like, and I try to tell people like, even when we go through like simple stuff like rolls, right? Like I tell everybody, I'm like, listen, like this is the way you do it, and this is why. Because I was from August of 2020 to like early October of 2020, like I was injured for like 8 weeks. I tore my abdomen doing a 3/4 roll, and I was like, I was out, and it was just because I was going right arm, left knee, and so like now I'm such a proponent of like, hey, yo, right arm, right knee, left arm, left knee. And when people do it wrong, I'm like, knock it off, bro. You're going to be like me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and a lot of time, like those injuries and stuff, they'll hit you out of nowhere. And like, you won't even realize like they always talk about that with guys on like TV, guys that are in major companies and stuff. They'll all of a sudden a guy will disappear, and they'll be like, oh, he's just got like a nagging injury. And you don't even know like what caused it. I mean, like, back in like 2018, I randomly started having these like really weird like post-concussion symptoms, and I had never like had a concussion like that I knew of. I mean, I had them because I don't think anybody in wrestling doesn't have at least a couple. I mean, it is what it is. I don't think anybody in wrestling doesn't have at least a couple. There's just no way. But I had never been like diagnosed with it. I had never had like a bad one that I knew of. And I started having like these weird moments of like being disoriented and shit. And then like I ended up getting diagnosed with this condition called VOR, which is like a disorder that affects your vision. And it's something that you can develop randomly, but it also can come from like concussions. It's like a post concussion thing, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was out for like 6 months, and it was just like it was like a scary thing because I didn't know if I was ever gonna be okay, and it kind of came out of nowhere. So it's like you you do your best to protect yourself, but you never know if you're just randomly gonna have that one moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm hurt. And it was like a weird thing because like throughout my life, I was never really like an athlete. I didn't play sports or anything. I was in like drama club. I was in like a TV production club. I did like that kind of shit. Like that was not to go off on a tangent, but like that was always the element I liked wrestling from, like the performance aspect, not the athletic aspect so much. But so for me, it was like I'd never really been injured. I never had a broken bone. I never had surgery or anything really. And so for me, it was like weird. It was like, damn, I'm like hurt. It's just a weird feeling, and it was like it was scary. And eventually, like I rehabbed it, and I was obviously got cleared because this was years ago, and I'm still working. But yeah, it's just like sometimes like you'll have that random thing where it's like, oh, I'm fucked up, and you don't even realize it's happening, and all of a sudden like you're right there, and they could never like fully pinpoint if it was concussion related because I'd never been like diagnosed with a concussion, but it's I don't think it was a coincidence that I developed this disorder after 5 years of wrestling. It didn't just randomly happen. But like, yeah, it was like a scary thing, and it was like, I try to be careful since then, but it's also like, you know, sometimes you're only so careful you can be and still, have the shit be cool and fun. But like, yeah, it's like you said, like you tear your abdomen with some stupid shit, or sometimes you might randomly start having some other shit that you didn't even see coming. It's all just like scary sometimes.
Yeah, and it was like a total gut check for me because like I remember I questioned myself and I was like, like COVID happened and that kind of dead
Sure.
stopped my everything for my training. And I was like,
Yeah.
maybe this really is a sign for me not to do it. Then I got injured and I was really like, all right, maybe that was the sign.
Hmm.
And then some other things had happened, like as I was
Yeah.
like trying to progress, and I was like, all right, maybe that's the sign. And I was like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be hard headed and
Right.
keep pushing through. And
Yeah.
it was, you learn like a lot of hard lessons, like while you're pushing in like your first couple years. And so like I wanted to know for you, like what's one of the hardest lessons that you've had to learn so far in your career?
Um, it's an interesting. It's hard to think like off the cuff because it's like you're always learning shit, right? Like they say that like everything's a test, everything's a lesson, everything's a test when you're in wrestling, and sometimes it gets exhausting because it's like, can I just stop being tested? Like, please, can I just wrestle and stop being tested? But it's just part of the business. Yeah, I think, and when I was like only about a year in, there was this camp that we did, and it was like a 3 day camp. It was like a long whole weekend where we were there at the Monster Factory the whole weekend, and there was a bunch of different coaches came in. I forget exactly who came in for that one, but it was a 3 day camp. It was very exhausting, very tiring, and on the last day we were doing like a Q&A. There was a show, and then we had a Q&A, and with the coaches and stuff. And so we were sitting there. It was very late, and everybody was tired. Everybody was exhausted, and like somebody made like a joke, like correcting one of the coaches, and like everybody was like laughing about it. It was like a funny thing. Like, wasn't a big deal. They said like I think like Kevin Owens had just been signed to WWE, and one of the coaches called him Kevin Steen, and like somebody in the camp was like, "Oh, it's Kevin Owens," which is like everybody laughed. It wasn't a big deal, stupid, but it was like. And then I was like, I said to the guy who said that, I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "Stop! Like, don't correct him because you're holding this up, and I want to go home." And like I was joking, but like it was like a bad thing to say that because I got like chewed out, like reamed, like in front of everybody, like screamed. It was bad, and I felt like shit. I was like 18, 19 years old. I'm still like a kid, not that long out of high school, and it was like when like the teacher yells at you type thing, and I got like reamed for that, and I was like, I actually was so like and at the time it was probably an immature thing to do, but I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, this is like so. I was like so embarrassed and like so devastated. I was like, I need a break. I was like, I can't. I was like, I need a break from this because it's like I can't take being like yelled at and shit. Like even though I did do something wrong, so that was a hard lesson to learn. Of like sometimes you just have to, even if you think everybody in the room is cool, everybody's chilling, you should never like unless you trust every single person in there, like that's your boy. You know what I mean? Like you're real close and cool with like, everybody in that room. Better sometimes you just keep shit to yourself because even if you think you're being funny, even if you think you're kidding around, somebody is gonna not interpret it that way, incorrectly or correctly. And I don't think the person who read me out was wrong necessarily to be upset because like it's like who is this like fucking 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid who's only a year in sitting here whining about like one late night when I've had XYZ late nights in my whole career, and I get that. I was just like and it's maybe corny to say that, but at the time it's like it hurt my feelings, it upset me, and it's like now it's something I kind of laugh about because it was just so long ago. I mean, it was 8 years ago now, but that was like a important lesson learned like the hard way. Like sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut, and I think that's applicable to like most aspects of wrestling. Again, it's like unless you know for a fact that everybody in a room is your boy, like somebody that you're close with, probably better not to just try to make jokes or fuck around and stuff. There's a time and a place for that, and it's better sometimes if you just keep your head down, listen to what's going on, just be serious. I think it's just be serious, just kind of be like listen. And that was an important thing. And then after that, I've never fucked around like that again because it just wasn't worth it. Even in times when I thought maybe I could, it was better. And I'm a person that like I'm kind of a low key guy. I like keep to myself, but like I like to fuck around. I like to fuck around. Who doesn't? I like to talk shit and make jokes and stuff. But I now it's like and if there was ever a time after that when I was ever in like a situation like that, like a learning situation, I always just kept my mouth shut because it was just better to err on the side of caution. And it's like people in wrestling will get upset with you or decide they don't like you or get offended by you for no reason. So don't give them a reason because they could just look at your face and decide they don't like you. So don't piss them off by whining about being stuck late at a show or something because it's just part of it. And at the time I knew it was part of it, but it was like just shut up and keep your head down, especially when you're young and only a year or two in. It's all just part of it, man. All the bad shit. Just swallow the shit and listen and don't fuck around. That was like I said, that was probably my hardest lesson. It's something that I laugh about now, but it was something that I still regret it. 8 years later, I wish I had just not made the joke. But it is what it is. So
It is funny because you did say like people can like you for like all sorts of not well they'll dislike you for all sorts of reasons, right?
sure.
Because we may have had a classy person on here who talked about how he had a punchable face and like people were always like, why are you smiling? Why are you
Yeah,
doing this?
right.
He's like, I don't know, man. It's just my face. He's like,
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and well, he's lucky because it makes him a good. It's for anybody listening, it's classy Max Sterling, who is one of my best friends as a human, not just a wrestler. Like I've known him for years. He's a great guy. But yeah, he does have a very punchable face, and I'm not afraid to tell him that. And he does have a tendency sometimes to come off a little smarmy, but he means well. But I think like yeah, sometimes people are like, damn, is he working or is he really like this? Like is Classy Max like the real person? Is this even like a gimmick? Is this even like a character? When we did he might have told the story because I'm such a good friend that I didn't listen to his episode yet. But did he tell the story of the ROH camp when that was told to him? Like one of the coaches that we did this ROH camp in 2019, and it was back when this was obviously years ago. So like Joey Mercury was still coaching there.
yeah.
And he looked right at him and he was just like, you just have like an asshole face or something. But he was complimenting him, but it was like he said it in like a very tense way where you're like, well, is that a compliment or do you like really hate my guts? But like I always tell Max that I'm like and just to go off on a tangent, he portrays a character that is like this smarmy asshole. And it's like when he's on and he hits all the notes of that character, he's great at it because he has just like a natural look and sort of aura to him that fits that character. And if you ever hang out with the guy on a personal level, he's really not like that. Obviously, not every wrestler is really like a one-to-one. My character is like some crazed, sadistic person who likes to hurt himself and torture people, and I'm not really like that. Maybe to an extent, but not really. Um, and it's like it just goes to show how like sometimes it's like you're more suited to portray a certain type of character, and it's like when he gets into it, it's like you said, people believe it. They're like, damn, this guy's an asshole. Like, he just looks like an asshole, but he's really not. But it's good because it's like you already know. You're like, okay, I get it. And wrestling is all about like simplistic visuals and simplistic ideas. And it's like you look at somebody like Max when he's all, even when he's not gimmicked up, because just he has that face, and it's like you know what he's supposed to be, and that's like an important thing in wrestling. So it's good thing Max looks like an asshole because that's what his character is.
Yeah, but when Max and I had our episode like that, he did mention the story, and he was definitely talking about how he's like somebody will like ask him, or they'll be like talking, and they just look at him, and they're like, "What's your fucking problem?" And he's just like, "I don't have a problem." No, your face tells me you have a problem.
Yeah,
What's your
right.
problem? He's like, "No, that's just
Yeah,
my face, man."
yeah. He's like, please, I'm just trying to live my life. Like,
He's like, "Just
I'm
leave me
not doing
alone,
anything
man." I
wrong.
was like,
Yeah,
"Damn, that
right.
that sucks."
The burden, the cross he bears.
So, what kind of advice would you give to like up and coming wrestlers?
Um, yeah, so I think like that huge tangent I just went on about not saying stupid shit is probably like a pretty big one. There's a time and a place for it. I think when you're with your boys, say what you want. When you're in like a learning situation, even if you think you're cool with everyone, it's probably better to just be serious because you're going to learn more when you're being serious. And I think like one thing that a lot of guys, I think like don't learn fast. And I don't mean it fast enough, like they don't learn it fast enough because they're not good, but maybe it's something that isn't like introduced uh, quickly enough in like the curriculum or whatever, but like wherever you're training at. But like I think like the basic structure of a match is like a really important thing to learn. Like once you get to that point, learn your bumps first. That's the big thing. Learn your international, learn your basic key spots. And once you can do that stuff, and when you move on to that aspect of like calling matches and stuff, I think like the basic structure of a match, which is shine, cut off, heat, comeback, finish, which is, that's like baby's first match. That's the simplest way to distill it. But that is like the essence of all wrestling. That's like the essence of storytelling. That's the essence of how you put a match together. That's how I do it anyway. And, it doesn't have to be that black and white, but those are your ingredients that you use to make your art, right? And I think like that was something that I wish I had not that had been taught to me sooner, because it wasn't that it was not taught to me, but it was something that I wish I had like picked up on faster. I had been wrestling about probably like 2 or 3 years before I finally realized like, oh, like this is how you're supposed to call them. Like this is how you're really supposed to call a match. My first couple of years, I would just kind of, I would be there for everything, and I would listen to what guys would tell me and stuff as I got on shows, and I understood the concept of like, hey, this is your spot. This is when you're doing this. This is when you're doing that. But to finally have that moment where I was like, oh, I can put a match together now. Like it makes sense. It has all those aspects of it, and it's telling like a textbook like basic pro wrestling story. I think guys really need to learn how to tell that textbook like pro wrestling story, because once you know how to tell that textbook story, then you can mess with it, and then you can tell like the complex, interesting, crazy stories of like great matches. But it all comes from that thread of like that basic structure of a match. And I think like you want to learn that basic structure so that you can not do it so traditionally every single time. But that's like a big thing for me. I'm like a big believer in like you need to know the basic structure of a match, and then from there you turn it into your complicated, because I think like modern wrestling especially is very, I mean, you're a modern indie wrestler. It's very based around like more complex spots. You call more of your match nowadays, and I like feeling it out there and doing it in the ring and stuff. But I think like I personally like don't have an issue with that. I know some guys think like, oh, guys call too much, guys do too much of like punch for punch calling. I personally think it's better that way, because if you're both exactly on the same page of every single thing that is going to happen in the match, it has a better chance of, I think, being good. But that's a huge, you could do a whole podcast series about that freaking debate. But like, I think, guys, you need to have more like complex, interesting, almost like I always want to say complicated, but I think that has like a negative connotation. I don't mean it that way, but more just like complicated matches with like longer spots and more involved spots and just more complexity to them. And in order to have those complex matches and really make them make sense, because they have to make sense, it can be complex and long and interesting, but if it doesn't make any sense, then it's kind of like not fun to watch. So I think you just guys that are breaking in, you really need to learn once you're at that level, learn that basic match structure and get it down to a T. Be able to have your 5 minute training match that you can do in your sleep, and you know how to do that really well, and then you start building to those like more complex spots and more complicated spots, and you get to do cool shit, because that's what you want to do, right? You want to tell cool stories and have cool matches and cool isn't always a million moves. I don't mean it like that, but just more of like we were talking about earlier, like more places to inject that character and like that fighting spirit and those moments of like desperation. And when Red Dog wants to win, when we know he wants to win, and you can have that moment in a basic 5 minute match, but it comes across better in your more complicated, longer 15-minute match that still has those basic ideas, but you've gotten to the point where you can twist them into something more interesting and more complex. And I think that's a big thing with me because I like when guys have more interesting, complex spots when I watch matches, but it all makes sense. Psychologically, it's got to make sense. So that's the thing. Just really learn your basic structure and your psychology, and then build from there.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's because like for me, it's funny because like I've had people who are like on the old school kind of side of things, and I've
Sure.
had people on like the new school side, and like I'm kind of like in this, and I call it like this beautiful disarray of like
Yeah.
awesome information where like like I'll have somebody will tell me, hey, we're gonna call this is what we're doing for the intro. This is how the finish is.
Uh-huh.
I'll see you out there, kid. And you're like,
Yeah.
cool. And then you have the
Okay.
other person that's like, hey, I'm gonna do A, B, C, you're gonna do D, E,
Uh-huh.
F, and then we're gonna do G, and then we're gonna hit H, and then we're gonna go to
Yeah.
Z. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, right.
Just go out there and just
Yeah,
do it.
right. Yeah, right. As long as you can do both, as long as you can do both, you're fine. And it's easier said than done. But yeah, I agree. I think falling somewhere in the middle is probably good. Like I said, me personally, I like kind of hashing everything out. And I'm the kind of person where I probably annoy people because we'll call it and we'll be like, all right, cool, we got it. And then I'll come up to them like 15 minutes later and be like, hey, you want to call again? And then I'll come up to them like 10 minutes before we rest and be like, hey, you want to call it again? And I'll be on deck and I'll be like, hey, we're going to call it again. Because I just really want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And by everybody, I mean you, because I remember it right away. But I think like you need some room to be able to throw those little moments in there. Like, it's like a really stupid, not stupid, but it's like a really simple example. But years ago, do you know a Primal Fear? They're like a trio based around here. Yeah, so
Yes.
so Primal Fear, I love those guys. They're like three of my best friends, and they're great wrestlers too. But as people, I love them. But I broke in with them, and there was a time when Manny, or I can see I call him Manny because I'm just so used to it. But it's Adrian Soriano from Primal Fear. He and I were in like this long feud at the Monster Factory back when we were both still there for like their heavyweight championship. And we had this one match, and we called a spot where I was like, I dove on him, and I did that shit where I got in and dove on him again. And then they started chanting one more time after the second dive, and I was just like, "Hey man, I'm gonna do it again." And he was like, "Okay," and I just did it a third time, even though we didn't. I like doing things to a T, but in that little moment, it was like, let's just do a third one because the crowd was saying one more time. And if they say one more time, that's like a big thing. That's like one of those like old school things that like guys like Last Statue and shit will tell you. Like, if they say one more time, you better do it one more time. And I think like you need to do that. You need to have those little moments where you can improvise because wrestling is improv to a degree. So have your list, have your complicated match that you call out because I'm never going to tell somebody you guys overcomplicated that, but you have to have those little moments where it can breathe. And that's something that I beat myself up for sometimes because I think once I'm out there, I sometimes do have a tendency to get too caught up in like the structure of exactly what we called and just getting from point A to point B that I don't allow for those little moments. And it's hard. It's even 8 years in, it's hard sometimes to find that balance when you want things to go to a T to what you called, but you do need some little room or a lot of room depending on the crowd and the slot that you're on the card and everything and all that stuff. But it's like you said, it's a mix. It should be a mix. It should be a mix of that old school mentality and that new school mentality. I think that's like the best. That's the best place you want to be in, like mentally, when you're calling a match. You don't want to be too much one way or the other, because then it's like you're too rigid. You know, it needs to be. I personally just think, like, when it's like that thing of like, oh, let's just call. We don't need to call anything for the heat. Just call the opening and the finish, and we'll go. And it's like, well, no, it's like, it's modern wrestling, and like people don't want to see, if like we have like a 15-minute match, they don't want to see a heat that's just 8 minutes of me like just stomping you and doing suplexes. Like, we need to call like actual spots. You have to have some spots and hopes and stuff that, and some guys are good enough that they can call that shit in the ring and it looks like they talked about it for days. But there needs to be some give and take. I think, like, yeah, it's a complicated thing, but I think like you said, and I'm not trying to insult anybody's style or anybody's mentality, because somebody could come on here and just be like, that fucking idiot, like, I've called it that way my whole career, and what does he know? And nothing. I don't know anything. Who am I? But I'm just, personally, my philosophy is that I think that you need to be in the middle, like you said. So I agree. The beautiful disarray, whatever you said it was, like, that's the perfect mix. It's the perfect mix, and it's hard sometimes, but that's where you need to be at.
So, like, someone's gonna come on here and they're gonna be like, I didn't like what he had to say. I'm like, yo, man, different flavors of ice cream.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good luck. A long career of people not liking what I have to say. That about sums me up.
Oh, so listen, like, those are all really like my heavy, like, hitting questions, but we do got to get into the second best segment of the 3 Count podcast, and you're probably trying to figure out what the first is. It's the Red Dogs Power Rankings that you can find every Sunday on our debate show. But this is the 3 Count podcast, 10 count questions. Mr. Geddy, this is how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you, rapid fast, and whatever's your answer, that's your answer.
Okay, quick. So don't like ramble for 5 minutes like I've done with every other question you asked me.
Listen, if you wanna explain your answer, by all means, you can explain your answer. We probably get into a whole debate about those answers too.
Every time I ever do like an interview or something, I invariably get to this point where the person is like, "Yeah, so for this part, just be quick," because I have a problem with talking. I like to hear myself talk.
Oh no, because like if we get into a part where you're all of a sudden you want to explain and I'm on the other side, we're definitely gonna have that debate. It'll happen. All right,
let's do it.
So let's put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. And in the words of Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
Lately Raw, honestly.
Okay, favorite movie?
Oh God, Creep Show.
Okay, bet. Sonic or Mario?
Mario.
Favorite cartoon?
The Simpsons.
Okay. Piccolo or Goku?
Oh, Piccolo. That's not even, who would ever answer Goku?
There's a few people out there who would be like, I
Really?
love Goku, man. I'm like, yeah, but that man was just like, hey, yo, Gohan, go that way.
Yeah. The real question is Goku or Vegeta, and the answer is still not Goku. Pretty much anybody in the series, it's not Goku.
The funny thing is early on, like when I was like really big into Dragon Ball, like I was really massive into Goku, right? And even going into my college years, like I was a massive Goku fan. And my roommate was like, he had to break it down and talk to me about why Vegeta was such a better character.
Yeah.
And like I was like, no, still rocking with it. And then I find myself now, I'm like, yo, fuck Goku, dude. I am a Vegeta fan.
Yeah, no, dude, because I read, as a kid, I watched Dragon Ball and stuff, obviously, but like recently, I actually like read the series. I sat and like read the manga because I'm like big into manga. I like anime too, but I like to read. And I was like, Vegeta is actually a great character, and there's not a lot of like great character writing in that series, but he's actually like a great character. He has like depth, and he has like an arc. Like a lot of the characters in that series don't have like a tangible arc, and like Vegeta's great. Goku is kind of just like, he's Goku, but Vegeta's like a great character, and I will stand by that. I will fight anybody on that. If you pick Goku or Vegeta, something's not right.
Vegeta's always trying to fix things. Goku's like, I'll just fight everybody. We could wipe out the entire universe, man. It's cool. I just want to fight the best. Idiot. Anyway, favorite actor.
Oh shit. That's hard. I don't know. I'll just say he's dead, but Sid Haig from House of 1,000 Corpses, because he plays Captain Spaulding, and I love that character. So let's just go with him.
I love Captain Spaulding. PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
Favorite
Easy.
podcast?
Oh, this one. No, I like I like the No Sleep podcast is good, and I like for wrestling Solid Monster.
Okay, bet. I like that. I was like, it's not like we have it marketed like everywhere, like somewhere in this
Yeah, right.
vicinity. Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
On this podcast, I get somebody from Primal Fear, man, or all three of them at once. That would be fun.
It
Great
it
guys.
w- it was cool, and I'll full transparency for those who don't know yet, but yes, they were on, and
Oh,
actually,
okay.
so Max was on, and so was Primal Fear, and they all
Okay.
nominated you.
Wow, my true friends, my ride or dies, man. That's funny. Yeah, then I'll say Max too, even though he was already on, just to complete the friendship
Complete the
circle
arc.
jerk. Yeah, right.
Bet. All right. And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this show. Favorite curse word.
I say fuck a lot, man. It's got to be the F bomb, good old fashioned fuck.
I tell people all the time, I was like, yo, the F word is like the best word because like it's
Yeah,
so universal for like everything. You can say it for everything.
yeah.
And there was this YouTube video that was called The History of the F Word. It's like the greatest 3 minutes and like 19 seconds of like entertainment. Like
Yeah.
it just talks about how you can use it as a regular verb, intransitive
Yeah.
verb. You can use it as an adjective. Every single word in a sentence was like,
Really
you're
breaking
right.
down the usage of it. Yeah, it's just one of those words that just rolls off the tongue so easily. It's like a very natural part of my vocabulary. I say it without realizing it a lot, and I have to catch myself sometimes.
Well, like, so those are all my questions, man. So last thing I do have to ask is to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm who is Geddy Cahoon, and it's who underscore is underscore and then Geddy Cahoon. And on Twitter, I'm just Geddy underscore Cahoon. And on Facebook, I think I'm just Geddy Cahoon. Like if you just type that weird ass name in, I don't think anybody else with that name will come up. And that is my real name, by the way. It's not a work name. I mean, I use it as my work name, but that is like on my birth certificate, on my social security card. People always think it's like a work name or a fake name or a nickname. Like, no, my parents gave me that whack ass name. So, yes, who is Geddy Cahoon on Instagram, Geddy Cahoon on Twitter, and Geddy Cahoon on Facebook? You can find me.
That. Well, there you have it. He gave you all of his handles, gave you all some great advice, and you guys just, you know, dissect this episode and listen to it. But you know what that means? Like every great part of a wrestling match, we got to take this home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering. And like I said, I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up this mountain called wrestling. But like every good Sherpa, you got to have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficient than you can. And that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. And who's entering the ring today? You see him right there. Geddy Calhoun is with us. And you guys know what that means. Tune in to the next episode and be there, or you are sitting here, you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, you are subscribing to all of our social medias, you're sharing it, you're commenting, you're liking the videos, or you're just waiting for this episode to end, you're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Oh yeah, don't forget to buy our merch. Peace. Wow. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3Count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At prowrestlingtees.com/the 3Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So, show us some support, please.